right, can you hear me? Yeah. Fantastic. All right, thanks for showing up, everybody. As stated, my name is Oskar Schnell. I work for IBM, and I've done so for the last 7 years. But I worked with integration and in the integration space for almost 2 decades now. So for quite a while as a consultant, but now as tech sales for IBM within the department that's called Integration and Development. But for the last couple of years, I've been working almost solely on our API management product. So my goal here today is to give you a little sense of what's new when it comes to the platform. This is the mixed platform track, so we're going to take a look at what's new with IBM API management, and a little bit what's new on the market in general from my perspective, and then a little bit from IBM perspective as well. So that's the goal with this 20 minutes. I have 19 minutes to go. So just to give you on a high level what we're working on with the department I'm in is, of course, API management. That's why I made that extra big here on this slide. So API management, of course, but we also work with system integration, messaging products, integration products, and also with business integrations. So if we see the persona of the business integrator, we also have products around that area to actually make business users, enable them to start to use integration as well. So a very broad spectrum of capabilities that we bring to our customers. But let's focus on API Connect, of course. So what's new in this market? I was here last year, so this is a bit of a high-level perspective on what's new from the last year when it comes, first off, when we're out there talking to our customers, API initiatives are exploding, literally. The amount of traffic and the amount of API calls that I see in the cases coming in and what is requested out there is constantly increasing. And with that, of course, the APIs are becoming more and more business critical. And with that, security is becoming more and more important as well, of course. If we look at the market, the total market when it comes to middleware and integration, there are two. In this slide, we have IDC and we have Gartner to the right there. The whole market is growing. If we look at IDC, for example, in the middle there, almost 16% the market has grown within 1 year. And what is pushing that market is the API management market. API management is growing, and so is the market. And if we look below here, this is the marketing share the different vendors had in 2017. 2018 is not out yet, of course. The marketing department is forcing me to show you this slide, but but this is the market. And if we look at the general large market when it comes to integration and middleware, IBM has 22% here and Gartner says 21%. And it's been that way since the last, I think, around 15 years. This is what the market shares looks like. So IBM is a big player in this space now. So also what's new, what I've been seeing visiting customers, I don't work in a specific industry. I work across all the different industries. So one day I'm visiting in a bank, or next day a retail or telco, etc. What is becoming more and more focused on is the use cases. And a lot of use cases, of course, are driven by regulations, for example, but also standards, of course. So these are just examples of these type of things happening in the market. Especially, I've been working a lot with within the banking sector, for example, with PSD2, and you can also check out Open Banking and Berlin Group, for example. It was announced just this morning, I saw that Bion, which is a non-profit banking organization, they're releasing a playground or marketplace with 64 new specific APIs just for the banking market. So if you look at any industry, this is really, really taking off. But also what's new, more and more customers are looking to the cloud, of course. They need a cloud strategy, and API management goes hand in hand with any cloud strategy out there. We're talking private clouds, but of course also the public clouds to gain more value out there. Another observation, it's changing all the time. I'm just adding links here also in my presentation if you want to take a look later, because we will be sharing these. But also the security type of attacks are of course increasing, as always. They're changing their flavor, but this is just to highlight that security is becoming more and more important in this space, of course. The more we expose, the more API management products and web APIs we expose out there, the more this is really, really important. So almost every time I'm out talking to customers, we get into security discussions. And if you see the vendors that are displaying here today as well in the different booths, a lot of them are from pure security companies, like the company who is hosting this whole seminar, because it goes really hand in hand. So for any API management project, I always, highlight, bring in your security department very, very early in the project. Otherwise, they will delay the project very, very much. Just to give you some highlights on what I see and IBM sees is what's new in the market. And of course, to handle all these challenges and this new type of a market, we have our product, and our product is Ibm Api Connect, which is most customers are on version 5 now, and we are coming out with our long-term supported release, and now it's changing. It's called 2018, so we're adhering to new DevOps standard of naming the version numbers. But this is pretty much the same from the old version. We have a developer portal, of course. We have our API manager. We have our API gateway, analytics, and the developer toolkit to actually develop our APIs. One trend I'm also seeing in the customers I'm talking to is distribution of the development of the actual APIs. Quite often, customers have a small group who is handling the whole platform, but the companies want to distribute the development of the APIs out in the organization. And the tool, of course, lets you do that. So this is just an overview of all the components and all the different roles, of course. You're at an API management event, so you've probably seen this slide in different variations. But this is, the app developer goes to the developer portal, of course. And then we have our API operations and managers handling the actual API products. We have a developer who's developing the API and pushes this into API Manager, and this is the one that can be distributed. And also what I want to highlight is the API gateway, where the actual run time is for the API, of course. So this is pretty much the same in version 5 and 2018, logically. But what we've done with 2018 is a big step when it comes to the deployment options. We still support VMware, but we're going all in, to use a poker term, all in on Kubernetes and Dockers. So you can now run API Connect on Kubernetes. Not only the gateway, we've been doing that for a long time, but now the whole platform is being run on Kubernetes. And this, of course, have a lot of interesting things happening when you start to think about architecture, scalability, disaster recovery, etc., etc. So this is just an image of the processes that constitutes API Manager in this case. What we're doing is the whole platform is now adhering to microservices itself. So the platform is built using microservices. The whole architecture is renewed using that. That also means, of course, we're completely component-based, and we can really scale and meeting the requirements that we saw in my earlier slides when it comes to billions of API calls, for example. Another implication is, of course, that we can start to use the different cloud vendors out there, because the whole industry is starting to support Kubernetes out there. So we can use it on many different clouds, IBM's own cloud, of course, but also with private clouds. So, for example, OpenShift and, of course, IBM's own private cloud, where you can run this whole platform on. So that's a big shift. And I mentioned interesting architectures. One thing we're starting to hear more and more is customers want to run the bulk of API Connect on-prem, typically, but they want to start to distribute the API gateways out on different cloud vendors. Because we don't see any big companies betting on one cloud provider. They all have a multi-cloud strategy. But then they want to spread out the API gateway to these different clouds to actually use the same type of solution regardless where the cloud is, so to speak. But the other side of the coin is, of course, the analytics. They want to have one view of all the analytics data coming in from the different API gateways. The API gateway that is used inside API Connect have a long history, way back from '98. It's based on a product called IBM Data Power. Data Power can cover a lot of different use cases. IBM bought the company in 2005. And it used to be the only form factor you could buy was hardware. So you bought the hardware, Data Power, and you just stuck it into your rack and you were ready to go. It's completely based on firmware. But what has happened quite recently is that we're starting to use it for new form factors. So we use it virtually. So you can use it now, of course, on Kubernetes and Docker, and of course, VMware. KVM is also possible. So that's another way that we can spread the usage regardless of platform when it comes to Data Power. Use cases, when we're talking about Data Power, handles, of course, our API runtime. But the IBM Data Power has a lot of other use cases that we quite often come into as well. It can be advanced business-to-business protocols, protecting web, SOA type of use cases, cloud and mobile type of use cases. So it's a broad Swiss Army knife Data Power to be used in a lot of different interesting use cases. I think the smallest customer we have is using like one Data Power, and the biggest Data Power customers we have are using hundreds of Data Powers inside their companies. There will not be a quiz on this one, but I just wanted to give you a feeling for the breadth of Data Power. It is of course used within security, because it can handle older forms of security protocols like SAML or Kerberos, etc. So we use it to do, if you do a call into an API management solution like API Connect, you very often need to handle proprietary or historical security protocols, because you want to make a call all the way down to the back end, and if it's protected with SAML or something like that, you need to bridge that. So we often use, in those cases, Data Power to bridge different security protocols. So we actually get an answer back. That's why I'm showing this one. There won't be a quiz, yeah. Also, just to highlight some things, the development platform is completely revamped as well. So we can build, imagine a call coming in, we can build logic like operational switches, ifs, XML to JSON. We're using different policies to support very, very advanced API management use cases. It's now a native install of API Toolkit, so you can run it on I believe, Linux, Windows, and Mac. You can download it and get going. Analytics is, if you remember, one of the boxes is now separated from the management server. So you can scale analytics independently, because that's the other side of the coin, as you all know, with API management. If we can gather data and monetize maybe on that data, or understand how the APIs are used, that can really need some scalability in a lot of cases. Our portal is also updated. We're using Drupal as the content management system. So we're now pushing that up to Drupal 8 for any design need. So there's a lot of portals out there that you can watch. I can add that to this presentation, but there's a lot of interesting examples out there that you can see graphically what people are doing with this platform, of course. Another thing I want to highlight is our services engagements around API management in general is increasing, of course. We have workshops for getting started, to identify use cases, strategically how to move along. So we have, independent on your API management maturity, we can help you out with workshops and services in this area. So now 3 minutes left. I'm keeping my time slot for the next speaker. So just a summary. So why IBM? Why should you be looking at IBM at all for your API management platform? I put this together late last night, so I hope they make sense. But one thing, we're moving to Kubernetes. Kubernetes is where the market is moving, I would say. It's not only our API management solution from IBM that is moving to Kubernetes. We're moving basically the whole middleware portfolio into these lightweight type of solutions. So it's really where the market is going. And it adds a lot of value when it comes to reducing costs, when it comes to scalability. It has self-healing and dynamic flexibility, etc. But also time to market. If you think about it, time to market is always important for any IT project. Welcome. And also, I mean, we have a high market share now with IBM's product. And what does that mean technically for us techies? There's a lot of reinvestment into the platform, of course. Also, I want to highlight data power. I gave a very short briefing on data power, but it's trusted in basically every industry you can imagine. So having a really good API gateway when it comes to security is really, really important, and IBM brings you that. And also ability to install anywhere, on-prem, private cloud, hybrid, and public cloud. So it doesn't, stop whatever strategy or ideas that you actually have. It's super important, I would say. And also, as I mentioned in my last slide, services. We're building out methodology and services across all industries, I would say. This was not a roadmap presentation. If you want one, let's sign an NDA together, and we'll hook you up to do a real roadmap presentation. Okay, if you got curious about API Connect and IBM's API management platform, I'm just adding some links there, landing pages and tutorials, etc., blogs and forums. And I have a don't miss. Alan, my colleague here, will have a speech tomorrow about how API helped transforming their business, real-life use cases. Very important. Always start with a good use case, I would say. And also, just to do some more marketing here, we have an event, Think, on the 22nd of November, and you're, of course, all welcome to do this one. And speaking about use cases, we have Nordea is speaking about their open banking and API strategy. So I'm plugging that as well. have to from the marketing department. And that's my presentation with 1 second to go. Thank you very much.
Let's give a hand for Oscar.